Dawn's Diorama. It's Sunday, April the 21st, and this week on the show I'll be joined by Ruthann Amarteifio, a radio show host and producer at blogtalkradio.com, Amarteifio, where she hosts two shows, Gather Round and Feed Your Head, and also hosts another two on Radio Akasha, where there's Progress Towards Democracy is one of them. That's with Brian Staten, and Akasha Temple Live with Casey J. Carraher. Ruthann is joining me tonight to discuss the subjects GMO versus organic, veganism and growing your own food. As usual, we'll see how it goes with the phone lines and whatnot. So if need be, we'll take a wee break and then go to the phone lines. Has somebody got the numbers handy? Skype Bob's Backyard, and well, anyway, we'll read them out if we do need. I don't think we'll be opening the phone lines, to be honest. So, Ruthann, welcome to the show. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. And I want to say happy birthday, Dawn.
Thank you very much.
Working on your birthday.
You're older. Yep. And I still feel the same as what I did yesterday, funnily enough. So, yeah. Okay, first of all, I want to go back to the beginning. Could you tell us how you got to the point of becoming a vegan, and what drew you towards veganism initially, and what factors played a part in your decision to abandon eating meat or non-vegan foods?
Years and years ago, I became vegetarian, and that was totally for ethical purposes. I didn't have a clue that it would turn out to be so much healthier for me and the planet. But I have to admit, I was one of those people. I was just in denial for so long. I kept thinking, I should really become a vegan, but I just didn't. And I was still eating, even though I cut way back, I was still eating a little bit of cheese and that kind of thing. But almost 2 years ago, it was just too much. I couldn't. I had seen enough things to know that it was really, really just almost as rough on the animals as being murdered. I mean, what they were doing to get the products I was eating. So I quit.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's fair enough. Right. Could we maybe go and start talking about GMO first of all, before we go back to the more in the veganism stuff?
Yeah.
So, can you tell me what it is? What exactly does GMO stand for, and what is the process of genetically modifying food? How does it work?
Okay, GMO itself, it means genetically modified organisms, and I'm not scientific at all, but I do know that it's basically messing with other material. They use genetic engineering techniques on bacteria and yeast and fish, insects, animals, and not just food. So, that to me, that makes it even scarier. And then when they combine the two, they're doing right now something in Kansas, which is one of the states in the United States, that they're using GMOs. Well, of course they are, but I mean, they're putting human DNA in the rice. They're doing some experiment. And I really don't know why, but it's
that does sound
DNA,
very disturbing.
It sounds so, but it's DNA from liver, and I don't know why, but the whole factory farming with the agriculture business is so huge, and it's just a disaster waiting, because you take all of these small farms that we used to have, and they've been bought up, bankrupted, out of business, bought up by Monsanto and other big, huge, gigantic corporations that just do like maybe one crop in thousands and thousands and thousands of acres. They're growing corn. Well, when something comes along that wipes this corn out, what's that going to do? And these things are happening because of the chemicals and all of the engineering, the bugs and viruses, the things that bother the crops are getting immune to these like Roundup. So it has to be made stronger now. And of course, all of these toxins, what doesn't go into the plant goes into our soil and into our water system. So we're getting it, even if we're trying hard not to eat Monsanto generated products.
I think we have a bit of interference in the line there. Rachel, could you mute up, please? Thank you. Right.
Yeah, I can hear better.
In reference to what you were saying there about the pollution of the soil as well, you brought up when we were speaking earlier about the Keystone XL, the pipeline, the fact that it's polluting the soil as well.
Exactly.
So I thought that was quite interesting. But so this GMO produce, because all the rubbish they're and like the pesticides they're using and whatnot, like the Roundup, I think that's what they're the Roundup that Monsanto uses. Monsanto, the GMO corporation, infamous one, which is actually we could veer into another direction there and bring up the Monsanto Protection Act as well, which I will do in a minute. But yeah, do you believe that to be dangerous for human consumption? And then if so, like what kind of things does it cause in or I suppose it's what kind of illnesses does it cause in humans that you're aware of?
A lot. In fact, way back in the 80s, early 90s, there were FDA scientists who were very concerned about the whole GMO business. And they said that they were afraid of the toxins, of new diseases, nutritional deficiencies, allergens that might be hard to detect. And yet, the lobby for Monsanto is so huge that in spite of what these scientists said, this became just a reality of our life. And there's so many things that have been put down to, like, possibly, and then sometimes it's not just possibly, but they have caused diabetes, autism. Now I'm talking about like Roundup, which is used because they're trying to get rid of things, but instead of the few things that they might have to get rid of is causing all these other things. Our children are reaching puberty at an earlier age than they did. We have so many people who are just porkers. Let's get real here. I mean, we're talking beyond obese. And, of course, then that brings on the heart disease and all of that. Now, have you heard of anybody who has celiac disease? That is to do with wheat. And there are a lot of people who say that they're allergic to wheat.
Yeah, there is quite a lot of that. And there's also like the gluten intolerance and all these things. And you wonder if that's all connected. So all of these allergies coming up in people nowadays. There seems to be a huge increase ever since they started using these antibiotics or these pesticides on the all the chemicals seem to be having a reaction because they're not natural. So it kind of, I suppose it's quite logical that would happen. However, they'd like to argue and say it doesn't, but I think that the fact that a lot of people are getting bowel cancers and all sorts of things as a result of eating like processed food, which is for the most part genetically modified with all sorts of toxins and neurotoxins and whatnot in it, kind of would back up the fact that they're just trying to cover it up.
I was told, and I've read several places, that the wheat that we have now is nothing like the wheat that we had just as short as 15 years ago. So, and so that's why all of these things that you've mentioned, and a lot of this is so new, and the allergens and things that, of course, I mean, it just makes sense because what you put into your body, this is what you are, and it's going to react with your body.
Absolutely, you are what you eat. Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I mean, I guess the key really is, I mean, that kind of leads us on to the whole GMO versus organic. Now, what can you tell us about organic food?
Well, organic just means that you have not put any um, pesticides and well, chemical pesticides and fertilizers on the food. And so it's raised without any of that. Of course, Monsanto hates this, but this is what most people in the past grew in their home gardens. And then there was a period when they were buying all of these products, the herbicides and all of these things that they were again produced by Monsanto and other companies like them. But now people are getting it. Many, they're going back to the way that they were growing before and trying to do it on land that hasn't been poisoned. So the organic food, I know it's true when people say, well, I would buy more of it, but it costs more. And it does. And isn't that ridiculous? If you don't put something on it, it's going to cost more than if you just blanket cover it with, poisons. But there are some things that you can buy that aren't necessarily organic, but they probably your chances of not being poisoned are better. That things with thicker skin, like pineapple, and then that's a whole other thing. If some people I know try to eat locally, well, I happen to love pineapple and they don't grow here, so I'm still a pineapple person. But the skin is tough, just like avocados, mangoes. We don't eat that skin. And so those are probably some of the safer things to buy if you're buying things that aren't organic. But I suggest to people grow your own. Anything you can plant yourself and grow is the way to go.
Yeah, because at least then you have some control of what you're putting in your stomach. You kind of know where it's came from then. And you know, like, oh, it hasn't had all these chemicals sprayed, or you don't even, I mean, it's even to the point where they've done tests and everything, but they don't even know the extent of the effects because people are still are on these processed foods diets or ways of life, so to speak, because they, for whatever reason, they just choose to eat that way. But it might be for financial reasons. They can't afford to get, as you say, they can't afford to get the organic stuff because I mean, I agree with you. It's ludicrous that food that is good for you is so expensive. So, and it begs the question, why is that food so expensive when it would cause, probably people wouldn't be, I mean, I'm speculating, yeah, to a degree, but from what we're seeing from people eating processed food, the illnesses they seem to be getting from it, and the health problems seem to be associated with it. There would be a lot less health problems if people were eating more organic stuff with less chemicals and the stuff that would damage their insides. They would, like, and then their healthcare would be. Though they wouldn't need to be in and out hospital all the time. But then that brings in the whole big pharma thing as well, because I think like a lot of these pills, if you look at, like, well, over here we've got this drugs dictionary called the British National Formulary. And if you start looking in there and you look at all the drugs like paracetamol and just the basic drugs that people take for painkillers and whatnot, pain relief, you look at all their side effects, and if you actually started to really read into that, it would put you off taking it.
It's
because
scary.
they've got the most horrific side effects. I mean, fair enough, okay, if you don't take them all the time, you're not, unless you've got, like, susceptible to liver, you've got liver problems already or whatever, then you're not going to take them unless if you know about them. But yeah, the side effects would put you off.
They're terrifying. It's terrifying.
Yeah, exactly. And it's supposed to be something that's supposed to help you, but yeah, it's giving you more problems than you had to start with, or just giving you a new set of problems, really. So there's not really solving anything. Always go natural. That's what I recommend, and I've been finding ways to kind of, like, whenever I'm stuffed up or whenever I get sinus problems, I always find that the one thing, natural cure I've found that works for me is just something like hot water with honey, lemon, and some organic cider vinegar, just a wee capful or organic cider vinegar. You don't need a lot, and that always works to clear out my tubes. You don't need all these big pharma like pills and whatnot. You can find, for most things, you can find natural cures. And I mean, if you watch Rick Simpson's show, then you'll learn all about that. But anyway, I was kind of going off on a tangent there. Now, Occupy Monsanto, I did, when I was looking into this a wee bit, I found that they'd put out a call to action because they're organising a march on the 25th of May this year. It's, 2 p.m. EST everywhere. Now, what I'll do is, it's just Occupy Monsanto, occupy-monsanto.com/march- against, anyway, I'll put the link, to make it easier, I'll just put the link in the video description when the video is uploaded onto YouTube. But also remember, you can torrent these shows and whatnot from the website darkcityradio.com. But if you want all the links, they'll be in the YouTube video description. We'll also put them in a group in the Facebook page. So we were talking about organic food there, and the difference, obviously, about the fact that the GMO has the chemicals and organic doesn't, is much better for you. So you grow your own food, is that right?
I grow some. This year I want to branch out and grow a couple of things just for fun and see what even what it looks like quinoa. Have you heard of quinoa? It's a very high source of protein. The problem with quinoa is, and it's cooked just like rice. And you can make it either savory or sweet. And it's just really versatile. But the problem is, I've been reading several articles about it. It grows in Peru and Bolivia. And because there's so much demand for it now, that the people who are growing it really aren't being paid, which is a problem in many parts of the world. So they can't even afford it unless they, keep a little bit off for themselves. It's so sad. That doesn't set well. But I just want to see what it's like when it grows. I'm going to try some of that. But I grow basics. I grow some herbs and tomatoes. I love tomatoes. Peppers, bell peppers, and a couple different kinds of hot peppers, that kind of thing. The early veggies, the different kinds of fresh lettuce that doesn't grow real good in the 90-degree weather, but
that's something I was going to ask you about actually. Was do you find that you have to grow different kinds of food at different seasons of the year?
Just a little bit here. I live in Illinois, which is pretty much the center, it's the eastern center part of the country, and we have 4 seasons, so. That definitely makes a difference from people who are down at the bottom of Florida when, they have a very subtle seasonal change, but they can grow year round. And here we really can't. But one of my favorite things is kale. And that, it's very hardy. And in fact, go ahead.
Sorry, I've heard of that, but I've never actually tried it. What kind of benefits do you find from that?
Oh my God. Okay, you get a lot of protein. It's one of those cruciferous vegetables that, helps prevent cancer and all, like your broccoli and cabbage and things. Kale makes me think of cabbage, but it doesn't come in a head as such. It's a lot looser. And you can really do almost anything with that. You can make kale chips in your oven or a dehydrator, and they're just wonderful. I throw it in a lot of different things. If I'm cooking, making a soup or almost any kind of a skillet thing, at the very end, I'll throw in some kale and it'll, wilt down a little bit. I also sometimes just have kale as the green vegetable in green salads. So it's super versatile. And it's one of those things that it gets sweeter in the fall after there's been a frost. So you can harvest it before that, but it may be a little more bitter, but it gets really sweet after it's frosted on. So you plan for different vegetables to be in different times of the year. Like I said, the leaf lettuce and things like that, that's an early crop, and then you can do another one in the fall. But I've not done it in the heat of the summer.
Yeah,
I'm not saying that you couldn't, but I haven't.
okay. So see someone is there any, just before we actually ask you the next question, is there anything else that you would grow in the summer really? Or like for people that maybe just starting at this time of year, they want to start growing foods, what would be the kind of best things?
All of your squashes, the beans, the tomatoes again, the peppers, all of those. I mean, they'll grow from the time you put them out in the spring. They'll just keep growing. And most things, if you pick them, you'll have more come up. Or, I mean, they'll grow more. Now last year I had, well, so this year, I picked the last tomatoes in the fall. I think it was in October. I picked them, and I don't keep my house very hot. So without refrigerating them or anything, I had fresh tomatoes up until February. So
Wow.
that's unusual though. And like I say, I don't really heat the house like a lot of people here do. If I would have, they wouldn't have lasted that long. But that was great because I can't do those. I mean, I've tried, they look good. I buy tomato in the market, in just the regular grocery market, and they just don't taste good at all. So I pretty much, try to save my tomato cooking, until I can grow them or buy them at the farmer's market. But that's not to say because I will buy canned tomatoes. That's about the only thing I ever buy in a can. That and some cat food. But I will buy canned tomatoes as opposed to trying to use those that they sell in the produce department.
Okay, yeah. So how can people without a garden or who have very limited space grow their own food? What kind of options are available for that?
Well, if you have a balcony, you're all set. And I realize that the balcony should not face north. However, if it faces north, there are several things that will grow. You may have to once in a while use grow lights or something, just because some things, depending on what you want. But you can grow on balconies. I've seen wonderful things, from just being in plastic tubs to flower pots, to buckets, all kinds of things. You can plant it, and you can use those if you're growing outside too, not just on a balcony. But, a lot of people are trying different things like raised beds on their property, or something they call the lasagna gardening, where you put the cardboard and your brown matter and greens. And I haven't done that. I compost everything. But I'm one of those lazy composters. I mean, I just have a place in the backyard where I just dump it. And you'd be surprised how fast it breaks down. And, I'll shovel it around and turn it around and things. But I have enough space. I don't have to buy or make an actual composter. And then I just scatter this on the garden area. And because it turns into this wonderful black loamy stuff. There again, if you compost, you don't want to put any kind of meat in it. One of the reasons being that animals will get into it more, so they say. But I mean, I just don't. Well, I don't have meat, so I wouldn't put it in anyway, because I don't want that in my soil. Before I became vegan, I had eggs, supposedly from cage-free chickens, but then I found out what that really means too. But I always put the eggshells in the compost, and I know I had seen my mother use eggshells and banana peels and everything, and I pretty much just do that. So I compost all kinds of, from citrus peel to, potato peels, onion tops and bottoms, that kind of thing. It all goes in the compost. And I throw some leaves in there sometimes, or after the lawn's mowed, throw some grass And
Excellent. I've seen also, like Callie had mentioned in the chat, about the vertical garden and small spaces is quite popular as well.
yes. You can, that vertical garden is wonderful. In fact, if you had, I don't know what you might call them. We call them skids or pallets here. You know, there are those wooden things that the forklifts can pick up and, you know, things. If you
Yeah, I
can
think
get
we just call them pallets, yeah.
pallets. Okay. Yeah, I've seen those, stood on their side, and they've used some type of wire or cloth in them to make like pockets and growing things on those. It's amazing what you can do. And some friends of mine like to go just driving and scavenging things from the roadside, you know, right before the garbage truck comes. And they've gotten like bed frames and different things like that they've taken home and put in the garden. And then you ride it somehow with maybe wooden stakes, and then they'll run what do you call it? Well, string or something from the top, and then you'll have, if you have pole beans, they'll grow up that, or peas, any kind of thing like that. And you can also do your squash and gourds that way, but you have to have something. Old pantyhose are real good as a sling for holding up these heavy vegetables, so that they don't tear down the vine when they're growing. So it's all about being creative and using what you have. It can be very fun figuring out how you're going to do something.
Callie's also want to know if should we be composting cooked foods? Is that all right or not?
You say cooked foods?
Yeah.
I have, because sometimes I've just had too much, or I've had a couple experiments that didn't go quite like I wanted. And I have just put them in my compost. There again, no meat, and I don't use much oil at all. So I mean, I even if I did have, even if they were pretty oily, I think I mean, you know, like olive oil, I think I'd go ahead and put it in.
Okay. So you've been a vegan for a long time, haven't you? Well, how long is that?
No, just a little under 2 years for a vegan.
All right.
Over 2 decades as a vegetarian. And progressively I was cutting back, you know, and I was pretty much almost leading a vegan lifestyle, except I still would use a little cream and milk, and I liked cheese. And I was doing some of those cage-free so-called eggs. But you know, cutting back. And then one day it was just, I'm so tired of making excuses like, you know, I'm going to do it sometime. It's just like, this is it. And, you know, I've not looked back, and I've not missed out on anything. But I do want to make something clear. We have a lot of celebrities now, you know, sports people, even Bill Clinton had gone on a vegan diet. And I want to make it plain that these people are on a vegan diet, on a vegan food plan, but they aren't necessarily vegans, because a vegan really doesn't use products from animals like leather, silk, honey, wool. And also, vegans are pretty concerned about where things are coming from. Like I was telling you, the quinoa in Bolivia kind of thing. People for a long time were using a lot of palm oil, and it's in a lot of processed foods. But palm oil is, for us, again, a no-no, because the land is being taken from orangutans to grow the trees and have the palm oil. So it's a definite lifestyle. So if somebody just is eating vegan, that's great. They're eating vegan, but they're not a vegan.
Ruthann, could you explain to us why, like, a vegan won't eat like honey, and why they won't use silk or leather, and things such as these?
The leather is, well, obviously it's the hide, So the animal is killed, and you're using animal parts then for the leather. The honey. Now, I'm not saying that every beekeeper burns their bees, but many of them do. When the season is up, they just burn them because it's easier for them to get more rather than winter them. So it's just one of those, it's a product that we're taking from them because they can live on this themselves. And it takes something like 12 bees their whole lifetimes to make as much as a teaspoon of honey, I've read, which is amazing. Silk, the worms are boiled to death.
Oh,
And that one, I used to really love silk. I mean, I admit it. Wool, sheep aren't killed for it, or sheep or other animals. I mean, as a rule, but there again, it's just using something that actually is for the animal kind of thing. And you may find a couple people here or there who won't make that a choice, but the ones I know, it's just they don't do it.
it's a way of life.
So, yeah.
It's a lifestyle choice to whatever way you choose it to go, basically. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's a life choice not to, within our powers, not to feed into the abuse and murder of any other living being. And so it
really
works.
It's really quite horrific what they do to the bees, though. It kind of makes you think twice about honey, but at the same time, yeah, I don't really. Obviously, I'm not actually a vegan myself. I'm still a meat eater, so. But I don't really want to focus on myself here because I want to let you get the information out without any kind of me trying to bias anything you're saying or whatever. So, you did mention about the free range briefly, but could you tell us a little bit more about what you know about that?
What I know about the eggs is I used to buy them in stores from the cartons that said, cage free. And then I've seen some pictures and I've read articles and I saw a video where they were showing these cage free chickens. And yes, they are cage free. There are about 80,000 of them in a building, and they aren't in a cage. And there's a couple places in the building where there's about a 2 by 2 foot hole in the wall. So if the chicken ever makes it over there, they can go outside into this very small area where there is sunshine sometimes. That is this is abuse. And of course, just like the ones that are in the cages, their wings have been clipped, their beaks have been cut, all of those things.
That is cruel.
It's very, very cruel. I have some friends who have a couple chickens that they raise out back, and those chickens seem very happy and they aren't going to be eaten. And my friends do eat their eggs.
It just does beg the question, like, you don't really know when you get something out of a supermarket, how do you really know where it's coming from? You don't really know the truth about what you're eating. That's why, like, as you say, growing your own food, at least you know what you're getting when you grow your own food, really. Yeah. So yeah.
I just wanted to mention something about the bees, because you mentioned them. And we've been losing bees around the world, right? And I don't know if you saw, this has been several months ago, there was a lab someplace in Europe that had come out very strongly saying that products like Roundup and these different products were what was killing the bees. And funny thing is, Monsanto got the lab.
Yes, that's right. That's it. So that's the whole link, isn't it? This Roundup pesticide killing off the bees, and which is
that type of the pesticides were. But then Monsanto bought the lab, so don't expect any more truth to come out of there.
Yeah, because that Monsanto Protection Act has been passed, hasn't it? Just recently.
That
Um,
was, I could not believe that. After, I mean, I know that President Obama is a liar. I knew that before he became president. But, you know, he was telling people that he believed that GMO food should be labeled and all this. This was when he was running, the first time around, he was saying this. And so a lot of people really had hopes that he would do something. And then, yeah, now they passed this, it's a law. They snuck it in on that emergency
yeah.
budget bill. They snuck this in.
Yeah, there's a little, what I'll do is I'll post the bill on the video description, but it's like they've sneaked in this section 735 in this HR 933 about that, so that they could get immunity in the courts, basically. So taking them to court's not going to work anymore, because they'll just undermine you
Right.
and get
I
away
think
with
that will.
everything.
I think that will be fought.
It will be, and obviously,
Yeah.
like, there's the activism, the march is one thing, but if anybody else knows about any other activism, please let us know. But yeah, obviously it's horrific that that's passed into law. I mean, it just goes against all our rights to choose and eat healthy food.
It's not.
We don't want our food to be poisoned by these scum. We don't
Yeah.
want our food tampered with. We want access to healthy food and non-poisoned water. And these scum are poisoning everything for us.
Right.
And it has to stop. It
That's
really
not
has
asking.
to stop.
Yeah. It's not asking for too much to have
No.
just clean food and water. That is not asking for too much. But, you know, the powers that be and their greed, for them that is, because they want to have the last say. And even Monsanto has been buying up a lot of small seed companies. And, you know, that's something I was going to tell people when you're planting things, make sure that you get seeds that are organic and try to get heirloom seeds. There's a company in Missouri. Missouri's the state next to where I live, and they're called Baker's Creek. And I believe their website is heirloomseeds.com. They have put, it's a young couple, and they have one daughter. They have put a lot of money into fighting Monsanto, and they continue to, and they will not be bought out. A friend of mine recently, just whatever, she read something about Monsanto buying up some companies, and she just, you know, saw this one company that she's bought seeds from, which happens to be bought, but the name stayed the same. And she actually called them and asked them, and they didn't even know, the receptionist or whoever she talked with didn't even know that they'd been bought. And so, you know, I mean, that's just scary. So if you can hook up with a company like Baker's Creek, they travel around the world and get seeds from, I forget what it is, from Afghanistan or something that they're selling. But I mean, they've just been everywhere gathering seeds that aren't poison and genetically modified. But so many of these small companies have, you know, they've been tricked. Maybe they didn't know it was Monsanto. On the other hand, the money offered was, you know, looking good. And so there you go. You have to, if you can join some kind of a seed saver, I'm going to call it a club, but that kind of a thing, or something with people who have seeds that, you know, their grandparents used, you know, that they're the ones you want to get into with. That would be ideal.
where you know where the seeds are coming from. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I'll also triggered something there about going back to the Monsanto Protection Act and also like the whole Monsanto business and like the Food and Drug Administration in the US, which is the governing body, isn't it, for your food over there and drugs and whatnot. And there's this whole hoo-ha about them not labelling foods that are GMO. which I think is absolutely atrocious, because people should know what they are putting in their stomachs. There should be some sort of labelling system. But then again, who's to know that they're actually telling us the truth anyway?
Yes.
So, yeah, again, go back to growing your own food. Cannot emphasise that enough. If you can, well, there is always a way, even if you've got limited space, window farms and whatnot, as we mentioned before. But also, just while I have a memory, I did look into this Monsanto before, and I also found, on accident, I actually found another GMO corporation called Ceres, who, funnily enough, one of their principal investors is Monsanto. Another one is Rothschild through Ambergate Trust. So you can see how all the dots are connecting there. But like, it is possible that Ceres and Monsanto, because they're both American, that they might be one and the same. But again, I don't know that. That's just speculation. But I just thought I would put that out there, since we were talking about like GMO corporations to watch out for, basically. So look into Ceres, because it's not really getting enough press. Definitely look into that, people. Also, so do you think there's any truth to the suggestion that farmers profit and if the animals are sick or dying?
That farmers profit from them?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think they profit from them because if they're sick or dying, it doesn't seem to make much difference. People are still going to be eating their meat. And if they're too bad and they get caught, they use them for pet food. So the farmers are going to make money off the cattle. And I don't want it to seem like farmers are making all that much money, whether they have dairy farms or whether they're small farmers growing whatever, because most farmers here in this country, they have hundreds of thousands of dollars of debts because of machinery and different things. So they never get out of debt. But yet, some of them want to pass on their farm, their land to their kids. And there's still a few young people that want to grow things. Not like there was 20 years ago, just because the corporations have come in and bought out so many small farms. And small farms, that's anywhere from 320 acres to 640 to maybe a couple thousand. And then after that, they can figure, well, after it's like 10,000 acres or more, it would be a larger farm. And then the ranches are 100,000 acres and something. But so many have been bought out. I did want to say that one thing that you can do, and I don't know if you have this in England, there's a PLU, the price lookup code on your fruit. And it's a little sticker. And if it's 4 digits and it begins with a 3 or 4, it means it's conventionally grown, which means it's had the chemical pesticides and weed killers. But if it's 5 digits and it starts with an 8, it's been genetically engineered and probably had chemical treatments also. The color has been enhanced and the size. Then if it has 5 digits and it starts with a 9, it's been organically raised. So that's something, and you can look that up online too. It's good to know when you're buying, just, that is there. And sometimes we have to just take the word for things. I mean that, okay, if it says that it's starts with a 9, is 5 digits, then it says it's organic, so I'm going to just believe it is. That doesn't mean I'm not going to wash it, but I'm going to wash it off and I'm going to eat it.
So, do you think it's going back to veganism here? Do you think it's possible to be 100% vegan?
Well, okay, no, because as long as I've been told that there's something in our tires that is an animal product, whether it's some type of oil in them or something like that. So it's very hard. I mean, most of us are using some type of vehicle to get around on that uses tires. Also, if you drink alcohol, there's some companies that are totally vegan and others that aren't. It's funny because you don't think about like the barrels that different kinds of alcohol age in, have been wiped out, where they've been oiled out, whatever, with some type of animal product. It's amazing how many animal products we use. And, we just don't think about that. But I know a lot of people, I'd say, are 99%, and I'm one of them.
Okay.
So,
isn't it quite expensive, though, to be a vegan?
No.
No?
That's one of the things that people think, oh my God. You can eat very well. The thing is, now I was healthy as vegetarian, but I weighed too much. I ate a lot of processed foods. So that was the one thing. When I totally went vegan, I dumped the processed foods too. And I lost a lot of weight, and I feel even better than I did.
These processed foods are often full of hidden salts, or it's more so the sodium that does the damage than the actual salt. It's the sodium in the salt that does the damage. Like they're full of sugars, hidden salts, and all sorts of crap, and numbers that you have to look up to find exactly what they are, and all sorts of weird ingredients and crap. Just crap. They are crap. I mean, like McDonald's is a prime example. McDonald's is Monsanto's love child. And I actually seen a really funny photograph of a giraffe like McDonald's. It's not funny in the sense of what's going on over in like Africa and the poverty-stricken countries, but the actual seeing the giraffe looking obese because it was living in a diet of McDonald's food was actually quite funny.
Right, because a giraffe is any kind of meat, and
because it does that to humans as well. And but right, okay. I wanted to ask you, if you become a vegan, like what kind of substitutes are available for like milk, cheese, ice cream, things like that? Is there any for people that want to give up?
There's a lot of substitutes, and I know people that use them. I don't. But that doesn't mean that I never will. But I think about a year and a half ago, I did buy some fake cheese. There was something I was going to make. Oh, I was going to make scalloped corn for Thanksgiving. And I've in the past, I always put cheese in it. So this time I got the fake cheese. But I don't eat those products. A lot of people do. And here I want to make clear that a lot of vegans are very unhealthy. And I mean, they eat something that is vegan. It just means it doesn't have the animal products or the animal in it. But like you were saying, they've got all these additives. It's got a bunch of wheat. It's got sodium, all these chemicals, MSG, all of this. And so these people aren't healthy. But I mean, they're doing a good thing for the planet and for other creatures. But as far as being healthy, they aren't. But you were talking about the price too. And when you stop buying the junk, just plain junk food, and I was never big for the McDonald's stuff, I mean, in 30 years, but if you don't eat the fast food and all of that, you actually have money for good food, and you can get very full on salads and things like that. I know you think, oh my God, no, but you really can. I mean, you have the greens. There's so many kinds of vegetables, the avocados and all that go in them, and nuts, things like that. And you can get quite full. Now, in the winter, I actually do cook a little bit more than I do in the warmer weather. In the warmer weather, it's totally just the fresh veggies and fruit, because there's so much variety. And I shouldn't say totally, because I will fix beans. I will cook some beans in the summer too. I like beans. That's what I'm going to grow this year. I've never grown before. I'm going to grow some soybeans. We have a lot of things are made from soy, the soy products, from tofu to tempeh, all of these things. But unless it says organic on it, I wouldn't buy it. Because I live in Illinois, where I'm surrounded by GMO corn and soybeans, and I wouldn't buy those products unless they say organic.
What kind of hidden animal ingredients are you aware of? in foods?
Say that again. I'm sorry, Dawn.
What are some hidden animal ingredients in certain foods?
Hidden. Rennet is something, and that this comes, I believe, from the cow's stomach. It's in cheeses and things, but you also know that I mean, if you're eating cheese, you know you're getting that. I would say some types, well, a lot of cosmetics, that's not foods, but have animal products. In this country, I think that your country and Europe is way ahead of us in that, because you just take it for granted that you're not going to have animal products in what you put on your skin. And here, they have to label it if it doesn't, because otherwise it will have. I'm trying to think of something really hidden. I can't think. Oh, one thing, dyes in candy and things, you know, some of these brightly colored candies, the coloring may come from different kinds of beetles.
Oh.
Red is real good on that. There's
disgusting.
some beautiful red beetle that they kill for the color, the shade of red. There's things that like that you just don't imagine. And this doesn't come from animals, but you were talking about additives in so many things. High fructose corn syrup is one of those.
Oh, yes, nasty.
It's very nasty. It is.
I find myself
food.
Yeah, I find myself looking at the ingredients of things whenever I'm buying. I mean, I just won't buy most of the juice in the shops these days because they always have some crap like that, or some neurotoxin, some sucralose, or some aspartame. They've always got something. Yeah, they've always got something in there, which is really dodgy. So yeah, I avoid these things like plague, and I just live in water and green tea, or just
It sort of simplifies things.
It does.
If you look at ingredients, well, I was told if it has more than 5 ingredients, you don't need it, and you should be able to pronounce those 5 ingredients too.
You should be able to know what the blooming ingredients are. See if someone's want to find vegan friendly restaurants in their area, how would they go about that?
Oh, I'm not up on that. I know there's actually applications for your phones and things.
Yeah, oh well, that's a good answer. I mean, people could actually just
do that. Otherwise, I think my best thing, I would just call a nutritional store and ask them, because they're going to know. Any nutritional store, health food store, that they should know the local vegan restaurants.
So, I mean, you might laugh at this question, but like a meat eater might say to you, "But don't plants feel too?"
Okay, yeah, they do actually, but I think that the feeling of plants is so different from the feelings of sentient beings, and like I've told people many times, I had one of my dogs died, and her father dog just cried and cried. It was horrible because I didn't know how to comfort him. I mean, because I was crying too, but I didn't know what to do about him. But these are animals, and we a lot of us have we share our homes with other beings, whether they're feline or canine, or I've had several snakes, and they had feelings. I had a snake who didn't like loud noises, and he really made it known. So, you know, there's different, there's just different types of feelings. And yeah, I've bonded with trees, and I've cried when they were cut and things, because they actually, you know, that sap is like a blood kind of thing, but it's a whole different,
the hours passed really quickly, and I'm afraid we've ran out of time on this show. We'll definitely have you on in future. If you want to stay for the next hour, you're welcome. If not, then we'll definitely have you on in future anyway. Do you have any website links you want to throw out just before we finish? Any final words?
I really don't have. I would say just Google vegans. There's several groups on Facebook, from bodybuilding vegans to just plain vegan, all kinds of groups like that, and support groups. I mean, some of them are hardcore, and if you're not already, you might not want to be in there. But there's like a vegetarian vegan support group on Facebook, that kind of thing, where people are very knowledgeable and they really care and they're very supportive.
Okay, thank you very much for coming on, Ruthann, and I'm sorry we had to cut it short there, but you're welcome to come on again in future, and thanks to all the listeners for tuning in. This was Dawn's Diorama, and next week on the show I'll have Kevin and